Good morning, sunshine. Oh my gosh, is this actually working on Facebook? I think that actually is. Anyways, good morning, sunshines. I have a random rant this morning for y'all because it's making me go slightly nuts, like it's driving me crazy. And I'm trying to understand, but I'm not trying to understand because I don't want to understand because I just don't think that it's appropriate. But then I have to remember that people just don't know what they don't want to know or what they don't know. So I'm gonna talk about it. Okay, so now that everybody's thoroughly confused. Um, Let's talk about your languaging. We've gone into our four agreements as of late, and the first agreement being that of your word and how your word, the words you choose to use with yourself, your kids, your friends, humans around you in general have an impact. They have an impact on that person, especially if that person doesn't understand how to create boundaries and how to acknowledge the fact that your word is not truth. So, this is especially applicable to kids because if somebody tells them something, they are going to likely believe it or start to believe it with time because it's what they're being told. They don't understand that they get to choose for themselves what the truth is and what it's not. So instead, they just believe the different things that you say, right? So our kids are especially susceptible to this. And it's just come to my attention. I've been observing people and had like some interactions where I've watched grown humans call children names. And here's the thing, they think that they're being funny. They're trying to be funny, right? They think that it's in jest. They think that it's comical. I'm not exactly sure, but when you call a child ugly, yo ugly, hey ugly, yo stupid, hey you stupid. I'm talking to you, goofy. I don't know, like just any of these words. It's hard for me to think of them, you guys, because I would never do that. Like that is so far outside of my realm of comfortability and so far into my realm of what not to do. I can't even think of the words. In fact, so much so, like I was going through some different videos from 2 years ago and I was watching as I was doing affirmations with my kids. Again, affirmation, a positive statement about yourself, providing my kids with the support to find their innermost power and acknowledge all the positive things around them about them. And I have to do that. I have to train them because there's these other humans out there that want to break that down by coming in and say, yo, ugly. Hey, stupid. Why would you ever say that to someone at all? And I don't care if you think like I'm just going to lecture for a minute. I try to be like nice about this shit, but like, why would you ever call someone a name, even if you think you're being funny? Especially if you're in any sort of like mentorship or leadership role and you think that that's like breaking down walls and being funny with children, that it's just is not. Okay, then let's just say that it's just not. It's not providing any sort of support. It's not. It's not making that person feel good or loved in any way. It's just it's mind blowing me. It's mind blowing to me. Okay. So not just the rant part. Let's talk more about this. Some of you guys right now, and you can go ahead and comment if you want to, are thinking like, stop being so sensitive, Callie. Like when I was growing up, I was always called a dipshit or an idiot or hey, you stupid, get me this. Okay. Okay. So maybe I am sensitive. I'm not. I'm not sensitive. I just think that I think that's ridiculous. But just because it happened to you when you were younger, did it make you right? Did it make it right? Does it make you feel better that as a child you were called a dipshit? That somebody like, oh yeah, but I was always called that, so I just ignored it. That's wonderful. Somehow you learned how to just ignore it, but really, did you just push that down and now you're doing it to other people because it was done to you? I don't know. I don't know. There's so much. Tell me what you guys think about using your word like this, about commenting and using that type of negativity towards someone else. And then there's this side of it, right? So number one, it's like the words that you use affect the people around you. Okay. Unless they have some sort of armor built up where they already have a certain belief. Like if somebody told Quincy that he was stupid And like afterwards, I'm like, bro, you're smart, you're smart, you're smart, you're smart. We're building up that armor because otherwise he's going to take on one of the roles. He's going to take on stupid or smart. And he has the ability to be either one because all of us do. But he gets to choose what that is. So depending on what he chooses to believe, my word that I'm sharing with him or what somebody else says, that's how he's going to develop. He's going to build that characteristic because of what he was told. And that's just the way that it works with our children. We mold their minds by the words we use, and then they get to choose which one they grab onto. And if you're not providing them with a positive side, if you're not providing them with an armor, it will happen because there are insensitive people out there. There are people that I think are just like, they have bully tendencies. Even if they're not necessarily like bullies, they have bullying tendencies. And this is what I was going to say. This is the other piece of it. It makes me wonder what's going on in that person's world. What's going on in the other person's world where they think that it's right or appropriate to use those types of words, even in jest. And usually I think it's because they've been hurt on some level, or they're trying to get attention on some level, or they just haven't learned positive communication skills yet. And I hope that's a yet, right? I hope it's something that they develop. So it makes me think about all these sides. So, us as number one parents, like, how do we approach this? And again, love to hear how you would approach things. But the first thing for me is not using negative words towards anyone, especially my children, even if it's in jest. I just don't think it's appropriate. And I go as far, this maybe you'll call sensitive, but I think it's just freaking smart. I go as far as to tell my kids, let's say that they're being like super loud and obnoxious. I'm not going to say you are this. I say, hey, you guys are acting loud and obnoxious. I'm going to tell them that they're doing the action, not that they are the action. This goes to The Greatest Secret, the book that we're reading this month, but that's like for adults and talking to ourselves, probably like way over what most people want to talk about right now. But letting them know that they're acting this way, not that they are that. Name calling is not in my book of cards, and I don't think it should be in anybody else's either. So that's my first thing. That's my first like non-negotiable for myself. The second thing is, not only am I not going to speak to my children that way, I'm not going to speak to other people that way or about other people that way, because then they think it's okay. We were at a play date at the park yesterday for my kid's kindergarten that he's going into. And it's hard because Quincy's so freaking big, you guys. Like, my 5-year-old, he's going into kindergarten. He's playing with all the third graders because he's the same size as them. And then Whit and John, who's only 3, is playing with all the kindergartners because he's the same size as them. And I think it's really cool that I have big dudes. Like, that's neat. But then like I'm watching how they're interacting, and Quincy interacting with the third graders. I'm immediately watching all of these appropriate, like behaviors that he's engaging in that I don't think are really appropriate behaviors, in terms of like pushing and teasing and tickling and people knocking each other over. And it's like this ridiculous vibe for attention with words and actions. And this was just in a 1.5 hour setting of being with kids 2 hours older than him, who have learned that these behaviors are okay. And I'm not saying that this was specifically in language, but I do want to bring it back to language, right? The words that we use about others, about ourselves, not even directly to our kids are listening. If you are likely to call somebody, you're driving down the road and you're like, that what an a-hole, he just cut me off. Guess what? Your kids are hearing that. And I know it because there's been times when like we're driving and Quincy are like, wait, like, what a jerk. And I'm like, where did you even learn that word? I'm like, oh, my grandpa. Like that, they hear it, they learn it, then they think it's okay to use it. And now they're the ones bringing the negative words towards others. And it just, bleh, that's how it makes me feel. Bleh. Like, so as parents, right? The words that we use with our kids, the words that we use in front of our kids, I think is super important. And then the third piece of this is the way that we train our children and provide them with armor against all of the other people out there who are who are who are hurt and mean and want to bully. And making sure that no matter somebody, like how many people tell you you're too big, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that, making sure that they know that they are absolutely, hi Auntie Susan. Kids are like sponges. They are. Watching the way that our kids react to the world is wild, but seeing right? If we're choosing to provide them with some sort of positive armor so that when those people show up in their lives and they tell them they're too much and too big, they're like, no, 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 I know that's not true. I refuse to agree with what you're saying. That's not my agreement. I'm just the right amount of big. That was in yesterday's talk about assumptions that I just posted about. And this goes for everything. Like, how can you make sure that you're working with your children? I don't care if they're 2 or if they're 22, and you're supporting them in their personal positive affirmations. And this is hard for a lot of people to even receive because they don't do it themselves, right? You're the meanest bully to yourself already. You can't imagine trying to provide support for somebody else outside of that. So that'd be the fourth thing, is working on this with yourself and the words that you choose to receive. And I love this because it really wraps into our whole 4 agreements conversation and goes back to the fact of like, what do you personally believe about yourself, and how are you going to hold on to those beliefs even when somebody comes up and says, yo, ugly, yo, stupid, yo, imbecile, yo, like whatever. And this is I think it's an awkward conversation for me to have. And I feel like I'm all over the place right now because it just doesn't make sense in my brain why anyone would ever do that. And I just witnessed it. It's so mind blowing me. So in today's rant, right? I guess the last piece of this would be, if you're like, I don't even know if I agree with what she's saying, like whatever, stop being so insensitive. I can say these words like that. I'm just kidding around. I don't really mean it. And let's just go ahead and acknowledge that like a big chunk of the people use, like the big chunk of like sarcasm that people use, they have real meaning behind it. I think like the fake stat, I do think it's a fake stat. It's like 70% of the things you say in sarcasm are really meant, like, but I don't know if that's true, but really, where are you at in the terms of the languaging that you use, and seeing, like, maybe just reflecting the way that you talk to people and start listening to the things that come out of your own mouth and be like, now, how do I think that made that person feel? I know I was just like joking around. What are they feeling about how they just received that? Could I maybe change those words? Did I have to call them stupid? Did I have to call them ugly? Did I have to tell them that they were a disaster? Did I have to use those things? Was that helping the situation? Was that positive criticism? Was I trying to support them in any way to try to get better? Or was I just being an asshole? So I just called a name. I did. That's what that all came around to. Facebook's gonna be like, I don't like when she goes live because she just said that word. That's fine. Don't share it to anybody else. I don't care. So looking at your own languaging, how you show up and what your internal beliefs are, and seeing if you really think that that's bringing more positivity and light into the world. Let's just reflect there. Let's just end with that today. Is the languaging that you're using providing positive feedback? Is the languaging that you're using supporting others to grow into their greatest selves? Just because you're not like that person, do you think that it's appropriate to use that languaging, to call those names, to show up that way? And do a little personal reflection. Really dive in to see, like, how are you showing up, and do you like that? Because the truth is, you can change it in a moment. You can change it in an instant. You can be like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to call people names anymore. That seems like maybe I was just that's weird. I don't need to do that. That's not benefiting anybody. And make a shift. It's that easy, I think. Maybe it's so habitualized that it's going to take you a little bit of time. You might have to, like, the rubber band on your wrist that you like slap yourself every time you call somebody else a name. Maybe that could be something too. Anyways, I tried to go on a rant this morning because I was walking across my yard and I was thinking about some of these different conversations that have recently occurred, and it was driving me absolutely crazy. And I wanted to make sure that other humans out there just at least have the insight to acknowledge that there's a different point of view, that being mean and calling other people names, even if you think you're being funny, it's not funny. Okay, guys, I love you. I don't have any action for today. That's it. And I'm so surprised I got to go live on Facebook. Maybe I'll try this again because my program hasn't let me go live on Facebook for a good month. Maybe that'll be a thing again. Okay. Love you guys. Bye.